A pretty good group coming into the room right now, so we're going to get started. Welcome this morning. Thank you for joining us. My name is Kurt Hessinger. I'm one of the full-time academic advisors here with the School of Social Sciences, and I'll be providing you with our presentation today. We also have two other advisors with us as well, who you'll hear from later. You'll hear their voices, Sarah and Sam. So you'll be hearing from all three of us at some point. But yes, kind of what we're going to do is give you a presentation that you would have gotten in an in-person session, but we're going to give it here as a webinar. We are recording the session as well, so you'll have access to this later when we send emails out later in the summer. But what we do want you to do as well, we do have a Q&A function as well, but we're asking you if you can please hold your questions and until the end of the presentation, and then we're going to answer them in the order they come in. That way, we're not kind of interrupting the presentation. So with that being said, I'm going to get started here. I'm going to pull up the presentation and we'll get going. Right. So, like I mentioned, for the webinar topics that we're going to cover today, we're going to cover our student affairs office, our academic advising office. We're going to go through some of the degree requirements, so you're familiar with those as well, and then how to enroll in classes, because that's definitely important when you get to that point in the summer to enroll in classes, and then a few things at the back end that we call next steps. So we actually have, I love this slide because it talks about our friendly neighborhood social sciences advisors. Kind of reminds me of an Applebee's commercial. So I kind of think I like it because it reminds me of we're in a setting, we're in a restaurant hanging out, but that's just me, but I think it's kind of funny. All right, so the slide you see here is our student affairs office. So in the photo in the background, you see kind of where our office is located, and that's actually inside of the Social and Behavioral Sciences Gateway building. We call it SBSG for short. Our email address is there, you see there, and our website is on the top as well. So in our office, we have 9 full-time academic advisors, and the great thing about that is all of us have received our degrees from UCI at some point in time, some further back than others, but we're all very well familiar with the departments and resources that UCI has to offer. So you're getting people who actually know the campus from, as a student and now as a staff member. So that's a great thing to have at your disposal as well. Even more important, we also have 10 to 12 peer academic advisors each year that are extremely valuable in providing information to you as students. Actually, we probably couldn't even function without our peer academic advisors because they represent you as students. So they're going to be probably your best source of information moving forward because you're doing the classes, they're, living on campus, off campus, eating, balancing work and school. So they can share exactly what they're doing at the moment. And so you're going to find they're a very, very valuable resource. All right, and some of the services that we have, we do course planning. If you want to change majors, you want to double major, possibly minor in something else, we can help you assist with that as well. Graduation checks and degree checks, we do all of that and a lot more. But those are some of the more important things that you're probably going to want to visit us for each quarter for information. All right, so communicating with our office, all of you probably have seen this email address on the screen right there. It's SOC transfers at uci.edu. That is the best source of communication for us during the summer. The summer is kind of a very busy time for us because we're hosting a lot of new student orientations for both freshmen and transfer students. So this is the best source of resource for information. If you have questions at any point during the summer, definitely reply to this email address and we'll get back to you. Just give us a couple of days to respond because it does, if it gets busy, it might take us a couple of days to get back to you, but we will get back to you. So that's the best source of communicating with our office during the summer. During the fall, you'll have access to us in multiple ways, right? One is definitely email, but the email does change, and you'll email our socsci@uci.edu email address. That's going to be in the fall. That's going to be your best way of communicating with our office if you want to email us. We also have a phone, in our office. So when our office is open and we're checking the phones, we have two advisors at the front desk who could be answering those phone calls if they come in. If it gets busy, sometimes we have to divert it to voicemail. So you might need to leave a voicemail during our busy times. But if you leave a voicemail, definitely leave your UCI student ID number, your name, and your callback phone number, and we'll try to get back to you and communicate with you. All right, and also we also provide same-day advising once the fall quarter begins. So at the end of September, once our office is open more frequently, we'll have in-person walk-ins. So what happens is when our doors are open, we're open. That's kind of our policy that we have on our door. So if you see our doors open, come on in. At the front desk, we'll always have two full-time advisors, typically at the front desk, who are going to help you out. So you can actually just ask your question, and we'll definitely have answers for you. So some questions we can answer at the front desk if they're simple advising questions. If they're more involved, we may have you sign in for a walk-in with our peer advisors. And that is more, you'll have about 15 minutes on walk-in time to meet with our peer advisors. We also post our schedule on the website. So every week, depending on what's going on that time, we always post our hours each day for that as well. We also do scheduled appointments with our full-time academic advisors, and we start those during week 2 of each quarter. So week 2 through week 10 of each quarter is when we start our appointments, and those are half an hour scheduled appointments, and you can schedule those by calling our office at the number you see listed down below, and then we'll go ahead and get you scheduled, or you can come in person if you want to try to schedule that appointment for a future day as well. All right, another great resource that we have that's very unique to the School of Social Sciences is our Social Sciences Academic Resource Center, and we call it SARC for short. As you see on the slide, they do a lot of different things that are outside maybe the academic advising area, but are very important for your kind of building up to graduation here at UCI. So they will schedule individual consultations. They have Zoom appointments. They have in-person appointments. They can help you assist you with finding internships and how to apply for internships. They also help with graduate school options and workshops, scholarships that may be offered by the School of Social Sciences, they will assist with, leadership opportunities, and how to get involved in research, which is very important as we are a top tier 1 research university as well. So the luxury that we have with this office is that there is no other school that we're aware of that has this type of service for their students. And so we're very excited that you have access to it as well. And they're located in the same area down the hall from our office. So once you visit us, you can always go over to their office and talk to them as well. And you're going to get a lot of emails from them. I think every Tuesday or Wednesday they send emails out once the quarter starts, and it should be sent from their SARC email down below. So if you get those emails, definitely read them. Don't kind of just file them away because they'll have important dates and workshops and things that are going on each week. So definitely important information to remember. All right, so right now we're going to go through a few graduation requirements that are important for you as you move through your degree program here in social sciences. So we're going to talk about that for a few minutes. All right, so first thing you see at the top is that all of the courses in social sciences, so any major courses for your majors or any math courses related to your major, all have to be completed for a letter grade. So very important to realize that there is an option to take pass no pass courses, but you want to save those for elective courses that aren't related to your major or math. So make sure you're taking all those courses for a letter grade option. All students do have to complete a minimum of 180 quarter units. And the key there is quarter because I know many transfer students are coming from semester schools. So if you're coming from a semester school, the way that that's kind of computed is if you have like say 60 to 70 semester units, you multiply that by 1.5 to get the quarter equivalent here at UCI. So the maximum that students can transfer in from any college is 105 quarter units. So 70 semester would be that 105 quarter units. So once you hit that 70 unit semester mark, that's the maximum that will count towards the 180 units to graduate. Now, you can still try to take courses for subject credit or things like that. It just, it won't factor into your 180 units to graduate at that point. And then the last part there, obviously, minimum GPA of 2.0 to get a degree from UCI. But of course, all of us are trying to, maximize our GPA. So hopefully the maximum is what we're looking at, but that's the minimum that you have to achieve to get a degree from UCI. All right, so next slide, we're going to talk about 4 specific things: UC requirements, UCI specific requirements, School of Social Sciences requirements, and major requirements. We're going to go through those for a couple minutes. So the first UC requirement, which is the same requirement for all UC schools, is the American History and Institutions requirement. And there's a couple ways of doing this, right? The first way is like you may have gone to a high school in the U.S. If you did a full, your full high school in the U.S., that's typically covered because you do have to take U.S. history courses and an American government class, and that way it's covered that way. Now the key with that is, as transfer students, you weren't required to send in a high school transcript for admissions purposes. However, it could be to your advantage to have that transcript sent electronically to UCI admissions if you think that you have done U.S. history and American government in high school, because that way it can be cleared for you, and that's a couple less classes you'd have to worry about, right? So definitely something to think about if you think you've done it in high school to have that transcript sent to UCI admissions at some point. The other way it could have been satisfied is through maybe courses, from your previous college. If you took a U.S. history class and an American government class and it's on your transcript, that's another way it could be cleared. The other way that you could satisfy is if you do still need to complete it is here at UCI. And there's two ways of doing that. You can take a year-long sequence in U.S. history, which you can see there on the first bullet point. You can also take one U.S. history course and one U.S. government course, and that is another way of satisfying it if you still need to do those classes here at UCI. All right, so IGETC and UC reciprocity. So GETC is something it's a California Community College certification. And on the reservations form that you filled out for us, we asked that question about will you have UCI GETC or UC reciprocity? If you told us yes, like you either did reciprocity or GETC, that means we're assuming that you have done that, right? And so the GETC certification is something that we need to see from the community college themselves. So it's usually listed on your transcript. It's usually at the top somewhere and it should say UCI gets you certification and a date attached to it. You may or may not have had requested that. If you think you have not, then you might need to send another official transcript with that on it. So it's not always an automatic that the community colleges submit that certification. So you want to check with the community college to see if it was on there. You can also check with us, and if we have already received it, then we'll also note that on the degree check we're going to send you later as well. The UC reciprocity is for students who are transferring from another UC campus. And that's similar to IGETC in the sense that if you've done your entire general education requirements at another UC, if one of your advisors from that UC campus can write a letter, official letter signed document, and if that's sent to UCI admissions as well, then we can use that in the same way as IGETC, which can cover a lot of your general education requirements here at UCI. So two ways of kind of getting that done depending on what you're doing. Right. Now, I already covered that. Actually, I got a little bit ahead of myself there, but it explains basically what UC reciprocity is and the IGETC. The one part I did not talk about is the partial IGETC. So some of you may have either a full or a partial. A full one means it says UC IGETC certified, you're good to go. A partial might mean you're missing one or two courses depending on the requirement. It could be like a science class, it could be an arts class, but that if it's partial, we also need to know from that community college what you're missing so we can tell you what that course is here at UCI that you can take to complete the full IGETC. All right. So definitely make sure you send all of those to UCI admissions, and that way we can, see what you're still short of or if you've got everything completed. All right. Now, another thing important to note is that even with IGETC and reciprocity, it covers majority of your UCI general education requirements. There is a requirement that all students at UCI must complete, and that's an upper division writing class. And that's the final kind of writing requirement, GE requirement that UCI has. So every student needs to complete it, regardless of major at UCI. And those courses are typically designated with a W after the course. So for example, if you're taking a course in political science and it says political science 121 AW, that W at the end of it tells you it's also an upper division writing class, and that would meet that requirement. So those are things that we can help you out with during the academic year, but we just want to make you aware of it that you will need to complete it during your time here at UCI. So if you haven't done UCI GETC or UC Reciprocity, and you might still need to do some other general education requirements, we're just giving you a list here of the categories here at UCI in case you do need to do that. Again, we are going to send every student a degree check that has, courses listed on it, whether it's IGETC or general education. So this is going to make a lot more sense when you get an email from us later this summer about your degree requirements. But this is just a full listing of our general education requirements. So you have writing, science, social and behavioral sciences, arts and humanities. We also have quantitative literacy and formal reasoning, which is basically covered through our social sciences math requirement. We have language other than English, multicultural studies, and then we have the international global issues. Okay. All right, so the residence requirement is another requirement that sometimes gets a little confusing, right? It doesn't mean that you have to live on campus here at UCI. It's basically referring to the your final 45 units. So usually within your last year of coursework, majority of those courses do need to be completed at UCI as opposed to another campus. So basically 36 of the 45 in that last, those last 45 have to be done here at UCI. So you have a little bit of wiggle room if you decide you want to take a couple of classes at another college outside of UCI. So that's what that residence requirement is referring to. The second bullet point there is more important right now because it is a newer policy. It's called the modality requirement. And the modality requirement refers to how many online courses versus in-person courses you can take to satisfy degree requirements at UCI. And as you see right down there, there's a maximum of 50% of your courses can be as online classes. So as you're taking classes at UCI, and you'll need to make sure that you're taking at least 50% of those as in person. You don't want to go over that, for the online classes because that means you have to take extra classes to reach the 50% mark. So what's going to happen is you're going to see that on your unofficial transcripts quarter by quarter. It's going to compute that for you. It's going to tell you like where you're at percentage wise with online and in-person classes. It's also going to show up on our degree works audit that we're going to talk about a little bit later as well. And you can always come into our office if you see something that you're confused about. And the courses are designated in the scheduled class. It'll tell you if it's online or in person. So that way you know what you're taking as well. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the school social sciences math requirements. We're going to go through each major in detail so you know what math requirements are ahead of you in the next couple of years. All right, so the first math requirement we're going to talk about is for the business economics and economics majors. And what you see in front of you is listed right there. So if you're a econ major, math 2A and 2B, which if you are one of those majors, you would have had those previously from your other colleges. That's calculus 1 and calculus 2, right? And then there's also econ 15A and 15B, which is economic statistics that you have to take. And then 122A is econometrics. And so if you're doing those classes, that's going to cover the math requirement for the business economics and economics majors. Business economics majors will also need to take 122B as well, which is the second course in econometrics. For quantitative economics majors, you still have the Math 2A and the 2B, the calculus, but then you're also taking a course in linear algebra, which is Math 3A. So that's required for our quantitative economics majors. And then the second one is a series, an upper division sequence in statistics that you'll take, which is a little bit different than the Econ 15A and 15B that you saw previously. So if you're coming in as a quantitative economics majors, you'll see those options for your stats courses right there. All right. BS in cognitive sciences has specific math requirements as well. So we have our COGS, our cognitive sciences 10A, B, and C sequence, which is a statistics sequence for our COGS majors, our cognitive sciences majors. You must earn a C minus or better in each course to move on to the next course. So make sure that you're getting those grades as you move along the sequence. And then you also need to complete Math 2A and 2B, which is the calculus 1 and 2 again for the cognitive sciences major. For our BS and psychology major, we do require the COGS 10A, B, and C. So you don't need the Math 2A and 2B as part of that, but you do need the 10A, B, and C sequence for our BS and psychology. And again, a C minus or better is required in each course. So all of our other majors that we have, so for example, like sociology, political science, Chicano Latino studies, all of our other majors outside of the ones you just saw have two options. One of them is the Math 2A, 2B, which is Calculus 1 and 2, plus a course in stats. The second option is a year-long sequence in our social science probability and stats sequence. Now, some of you may have part of this done. So if you did a semester of stats at your previous college, that would probably equate to Stat 7 here at UCI. If that's all you have done, then you have a couple of choices. One is you could try to complete that with the calculus if you want to go that route. If you don't, then you would go down to the second option, which is completing the 10A, B, and C sequence. And that would be something you probably would want to roll into during your first year at UCI, fall, winter, and spring, so you get that out of the way so you don't have to worry about it later. So a couple of options that might exist there, and something that you want to think about and see what you feel is best for you in the long run. All right, so our social science school requirement, another one is our computer technology requirement. This is like a one course commitment, and so it's not a sequence like our math, but it is required for all of our majors in social sciences, and we're going to go through the options right now. So our first major that has a computer requirement is our BS in Cognitive Sciences major. That major does require specific courses. So you would either be taking Cognitive Science 14P or ICS 31. So the 14P one is a more of a programming course for our Cognitive Sciences majors. It's really involved more around those topics. It is programming based. The ICS 31 course is a computer science programming course which is a little bit harder to enroll into because it is offered for our computer science majors here at UCI. So if you decide to go that route, you might have to take that in the summer because it usually fills up fairly quickly. But most of our students in the cognitive sciences tend to take the 14P class. All right, and so for our BS psychology majors, again, that also will be taking the COGS 14P class. So both of our cognitive sciences majors and psychology majors will both be taking 14P as their option for the computer technology class. And then our social policy public service major is built in as part of their major requirements. They have social science 3A, which is our kind of our school of social science computer tech course, but that is required as a major requirement. So that's going to meet the requirement for all of our social policy and public service majors. All of our other majors have choices. Most of our majors will probably take the social science 3A class because it is offered every quarter. It's easier to enroll into. We offer it in the summer as well. And it's more practical for our other majors. So it deals a lot more with research topics, so maybe some software programs related to research and how you would do things in social sciences. Not really a programming based course, so not as intense on that side, but it is probably the preferred option for most of our other majors here at in social sciences. All right, and then major requirements. So later in the summer, which is going to be very soon, you're going to be receiving a degree check sheet for your major that shows all of your transfer coursework and how it's factored into your major. So that's going to make a lot more sense when you receive it from one of our advisors. And it's really going to explain what you received credit for from your previous college and what you still need to complete here at UCI. And that's going to help you enroll into courses during the summer. So you're going to get that as an attachment later, and that's going to help out a lot. In the future, you will have an online degree audit system that we have here at UCI called DegreeWorks, and that's going to be the basically the online version of that paper degree check that you're going to get via email. That won't be up to date probably until the middle of the fall quarter, like about week 6 of the quarter. So that's something that you're going to want to, check at that point, but I wouldn't worry about it too much until you get to kind of the midpoint of your first quarter here at UCI. All right, so now we're going to cover a few important tips about enrolling to classes. This is going to be obviously helpful for you because you are going to be doing this on your own and you're going to be able to have access to this to see it again. So we're going to go through those options right now. All right, so enrollment timeline. So normally during the quarter, right, this is not including summer because the enrollment timeline is different for new students in the summer. But in upcoming quarters, the scheduled classes comes out at week 6 of every quarter. It's the same week 6 every quarter. You can actually go on the registrar's website and see the dates and put those in your online calendar if you want, just to remind you. But every week 6, your schedule for the next quarter comes out. So that's really at the halfway point of the quarter. You can start looking at the classes for the next quarter, and that'll be able to for you to see that as well. There's also an app called ZotCourse, UCI ZotCourse. So if you Google that, a lot of students use that app to help them with the scheduling, and it helps color code your schedule. And you can point and click and get your courses over there, so you can see kind of an outline of what your courses look like for the week. So that's a good app or a good website to utilize. Week 7 is when you actually log into our web reg system to see when your enrollment window opens up. So you don't enroll during week 7, but that's when you log in to see when your next date is. And every student is given a specific, deadline, like a enrollment window to enroll in classes. So it could be like, say, November 27th at 2 p.m. And if that's your date, that's your personal time. You have 48 hours to enroll in the classes, and then other windows open up. So very important for you to kind of be ready to enroll as soon as your enrollment window opens up. Because if you miss that deadline, then the window closes and other students can get classes and they might get full, and then you might not get your ideal schedule. So always try to make sure you're enrolling during your assigned enrollment window time. And then enrollment actually begins week 8. So depending on your unit allocation, so that's how it's based off of. So students that have achieved the most units will get the earliest enrollment times. So you'll be kind of in that third year junior level at the beginning, but as you complete courses, you're going to get better enrollment window times every quarter. So at the beginning, it might be towards the back of week 8 or at the beginning of week 9, but eventually you'll move up and you'll get earlier enrollment window time. So that's kind of how it's done here at UCI as far as enrollment windows. And then obviously, if you have questions along the way, we encourage you to visit our office. Like I said, when we're open, come in early. Come in, before your normal window opens up. That way we can help you out and it's less stressful for you. And then you have other options in case things fill up. And that way, you're not stressing out as well. All right, so enrollment basics. So once the quarter begins, there is a deadline to add and drop courses. So once we start the quarter, the deadline to add or drop a course is Friday of week 2 before 5 p.m. So you want to make sure that you're comfortable with your schedule by that point, because after that point, it's really hard to add or drop a course. Very rarely does that happen. So the schedule that you have after week 2 is the one you're going to be completing for the remainder of the quarter. So make sure you understand those deadlines. If you want to change a grade option, let's say you want to change an elective course to pass, no pass, you have until Friday, week 10 at 5 p.m. for that. So a little bit longer for that option. All right, so enrollment basics, we're just showing you here kind of from weeks 1 through 2, you would utilize the WebReg system to make changes in your schedule. Weeks 3 through 10, if you're kind of trying to like, do a grade option change, you use the enrollment exception function through your student access account. So this slide just kind of tells you what weeks you're going to be utilizing the different websites. All right, so sample schedule. So what we're putting up here is kind of I guess, sample schedule for maybe a student who's taking 12 units. So what you see in front of you looks pretty manageable. And when I say 12 units, this is kind of what we're recommending for all new students during their first quarter at UCI. Now, that's the other adjustment if you're coming from a semester school is that you might be taking courses, maybe 4 or 5, even 6 courses sometimes on a semester system. But remember, you're coming into a quarter system now where you're taking classes in 3 different terms as opposed to 2 terms during the year. So the quarter system moves very quickly at the beginning. So instead of 15, 16 week time frame, you're taking the same amount of coursework, amount of study time in 10 weeks. So you're cutting that off at the back end. So it does move pretty quickly at the beginning, and 12 units is considered a minimum full time. Most students start out with 12 to get adjusted to the quarter system, and then most students tend to be about 16 units on average every quarter after that. That's usually where most students kind of feel comfortable with at that point. So this kind of shows you what a 12 weeks, a 12 unit schedule would look like, 3 classes. Very heavy on the Tuesday, Thursday, which is not uncommon. You might have to back in some of your classes, and then you might not have anything on Monday and Friday, right? So it looks like you have a lot of free time, and you do have some choices to make. But what we're going to show you is like you got to factor in things like study time, right? So study time is important because everyone's different, and when they factor that in, when their study time is best. So you want to include that in your schedule. And then, of course, many of you might be working part-time jobs or even full-time jobs. You're also going to be exercising, hopefully practicing self-care, and you want to factor that into your weekly schedule. And then clubs and social groups, if you're joining those, tend to meet in the evening, right? So we're putting those in there to show you how the schedule kind of gets a little bit more busy, so you can factor in the 12-unit schedule. And then finally, obviously, sleep, sometimes we forget about that and we need to make sure we eat our meals and stay healthy that way as well. So the purpose of this is not to kind of, scare you away, but it's to show you that a 12-unit schedule is probably ideal at the beginning, just so you have time to factor in all these extra things and feel comfortable with the pace of the 10-week quarter. So this just kind of hopefully helps you see that a 12-unit quarter is a good one in the fall quarter. All right, so navigating the schedule of classes. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to come out of the presentation for a little bit, and I'm going to show you the schedule of classes and go through a sample course. So give me a second here, and I'm going to get out of this, and then I'm going to show you the schedule of classes right here. So this is the scheduled classes. In fact, I'm going to go back to the original screen first. So this is the main registrar's web page. So this is kind of a web page that you want to bookmark right off the bat, maybe put at the top of your list because you're probably going to frequent this website more than any other here at UCI. And the reason being is there's a few websites at the top here. The first one on the yellow ribbon is the schedule of classes, which I'm going to go through in a second. The next one is the general catalog, which you might need to access for course descriptions and things like that. WebReg is actually the tool you're going to use to enroll into courses, which we're going to go through in a little bit. And then student access is how you access your unofficial UCI transcripts, how to access the online DegreeWorks audit. So these four links are probably going to be the most important. So if you bookmark this web page, you'll have easy access to it when you need it. All right. So, and also too on the side here, you have calendars, quarterly calendars, tuition and fees. There's a lot of good information on this side as well. So another reason to kind of make that an important website to look at. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on schedule classes. And then now what we're seeing is kind of everything related to how to search for classes here at UCI. And I'm not going to go over all of the filtering options because there's a lot of them there, but there are ways to kind of like filter things for like days of the week, courses offered on certain days, certain times, morning or afternoon. You can search by online versus in person. So those are things you can play around with maybe on your free time to kind of go through that. But I'm going to try to keep it simple to show you kind of, how to look for classes just more of in a general way. So the first one is kind of the general education option. So if you needed to complete any general education classes, you can search for that. That's one way. But the main way that most students search for classes is by department. So whoever's teaching the class, so if it's political science, you look for that. If it's calculus, you look under math. So that's how you can search. Everything's in alphabetical order, easy to find right there, right? And everything defaults to the current quarter, right? That you can see here. So I'm going to pick a sample course and maybe I'll just pick sociology because they'll have some courses there. I'm going to show you, actually, you know what? I'm going to start with political science. Maybe I'll do that. Only because I technically was both poli-sci and sociology, so I'm going to be partial right now. All right, so political science. So I'm looking for political science courses because I'm a political science major. And now I said, okay, great, I have that. The next step I'm going to do, right, is to hit display web results. And what that's going to do is provide me with every course that's offered in political science during the fall quarter. And at the top here, you see School of Social Sciences and you see some gray box information. I would definitely kind of read through that information at the beginning so you're comfortable with it because there could be important dates and deadlines like course restrictions and when they lift and things like that. So definitely take a look at that. But then as you scroll down, you're going to start seeing classes, right? So at UCI, lower division classes are numbered from 1 to 99. So obviously this is 21A, this would be a lower division class. So anything in that area would be considered lower division. Anything numbered 100 to 199 is considered upper division. And those courses would start, right here, right? So anything in that would be an upper division course. So many of you have some of the lower division courses completed, right? So I want to show you a couple of things, only because it's relevant to online versus in person. So some of you might have Intro to American Government completed, but I'm going to use this course as an example just to show you the whole schedule. So here you can see that Intro to American Government could be an option for you if you haven't completed it already. And you see a couple of options here. You see a lecture A and a lecture B, right? So what that means is this course is very popular. So a lot of times with those classes, we offer two versions of the same class, right? In this case, we're offering an online class for lecture A and an in-person class for lecture B. So you'd have a choice of either one of those if you're choosing this class. If you choose the online, you notice it says TBA online. So that typically means it's asynchronous class. So that's why it's a TBA because there's not a set time for this lecture. But then you might see for discussions, you might see online and there might be a synchronous online lecture, right? Because it has a time next to it. So that's what you look for on the online. It does tell you the modality, as I mentioned as well. The second option is a lecture B, and this is an in-person class, as you can see right here. And it has a designated time, Tuesday, Thursday, 8 to 9:20, and it has discussions as well. So let me cover the lecture and discussion option first. Anytime you see a lecture and a discussion, typically that means you're going to need two course codes. And these course codes are listed here on the far left, right? That's the key to the entire process of enrolling. That's what you're going to use to put into the WebReg system later. And I'm going to use lecture B as the option because it is an in-person class. So if you look at lecture B, you can see the professor who's teaching it, right? Professor Berg. You see that it's 4 units, which is very typical. Most classes at UCI are 4 units. But you see 0 for the discussions, and that's also very typical. Most classes, the units are associated with the lecture because that's the major portion of the course. and that's why you see zero, because it's a kind of a package deal, right? So lecture, discussion, package deal right there. The discussions, the reason that we have those in some classes is that the larger lectures that we have, we try to break those down or in certain classes so you have more time to discuss topics that were discussed in the lecture with TAs, or you might have quizzes there, you might turn in papers or some group work. So if you see a lecture and a discussion option, just know that you're going to pick the lecture and then you can choose one discussion that goes with that lecture. All right. In this case, the class is Tuesday, Thursday, 8 to 9:20. So you already know that's there. You can also, it also tells you where the room is located, which is SSH 100. If you click on that link, it takes you to kind of the class website, which is kind of helpful because it shows you what the lecture hall looks like, shows you where it is on the campus map. So a nice little tool to utilize right there. And then it also shows you the final exam. It's already listed as Tuesday, December 9th from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. So that's already set. You can put that in your calendar. This class, this number shows you how many students could maximum be in this class. So it's about 150 max class. Right now, there's 74 students in the class currently, which means it's readily available for you if you need that class this quarter. This area, this column right here is the waitlist column, right? And that tells you, let's say the class already reached its 150 capacity. There might be some students who are hoping that some students drop and you can add yourself to a wait list, but it's never guaranteed off the wait list because it does depend on how many students drop. So I wouldn't only utilize the wait list. Make sure you're enrolling in actual courses that are open. Okay. Um, the other column that's important is this restriction column right here. This would tell you if the class is restricted, right? So if you see like an N, like in this class, that means the class is restricted to only School of Social Sciences majors. If it has an L restriction, that means only majors have access to that. And the way you know what those mean is if you go to if you scroll to the bottom of the website, you'll see kind of the bottom the restriction codes for each of those and what they mean. So that's a good way to kind of go up there if you need to see that. Okay. All right, so that covers the restriction columns. And then here is the link for the UCI bookstore. So when the books are assigned for the class, you click on that and that takes you to the bookstore. Probably won't be up for most classes until closer to the beginning of the quarter. So you may not see the books assigned yet. This column out here, that's blank right here, is the web column for when the class website is available. So when the class website is available, you'll see usually a little link there, and it'll take you to the Canvas website, and that's where you get access to the course outline, the syllabus, all the assignments that are required. But again, professors probably won't have that until closer to the beginning of the fall quarter. And then the final column that you see here tells you the status of the course, which is very important. So anything that you see as green open or blue new only is what you're looking for this fall quarter, right? So that means it's readily available for you to enroll. It's an option for you. New only is only an option for the fall quarter because we do protect some classes in the fall because our current students enrolled back in May, and we want to make sure that we save some spots for current new students. So if you see new only, that's fine. That's for you. Open is also fine as well. What you want to stay away from are courses that say waitlisted in red, or if it says full in black letters, that means that's not an option for enrollment for today. So make sure you're kind of matching up open and new only. So anything that's open and new only with a lecture discussion is what you're looking for. All right, so very important as you're looking through those classes. So that would take you to here, right? So let's say I want lecture B. I know that's 67040. And then maybe I want this discussion 367043. I want to copy those down somewhere because I'm going to need those later to enroll in the class. So that's once you've decided on this is the class that you want, and those are the options, write that down because you want to get all these options first before you actually log in to the enrollment system because you want to have all the codes so it doesn't take you that much time to enroll once you have the codes. And you're basically going to do this kind of for every class, right? So if you're taking 12 units, that's 3 classes. You want to keep looking for your classes based off the department. You're going to keep doing the same process until you get all of your course codes. So for example, if you're looking for like a stats option, like if you want to choose a social science stats, you would go down here and then you would look display results again. And then as I mentioned, one of those options was the 10 series for this probably in stats. That's where you would look for the stats, right? So you're basically going to keep doing this until you get all your course codes, and then you're going to start the enrollment process. All right, so hopefully that made sense. Hopefully that was clear. But again, you'll have access to this again later if you need to redo it. Also, your Canvas modules has that information as well. So you should have some resources available to you if you have more questions on that. All right, so I'm going to go back to the webinar, right? And so we're going to actually continue this so we can go show you how to enroll into classes now. So, yeah. All right. All right. So we actually covered that already with the schedule of classes. Okay. So now what we're going to cover is how to enroll through WebReg. Right. Now, unfortunately, I can't demonstrate that for you because it does require like a student login and we don't have access to that. So we've done some slides here to show you what that looks like. So basically back on that registrar's website, one of the links I mentioned was WebReg. You're going to go back to that registrar's page, click on WebReg, right? And then click on Access WebReg, which is listed right here to the far right. And then it's going to ask you for your UCI Net ID and password. So you are going to log in for that. And then once you get to the fall quarter menu, this is what you see, right? So you see your enrollment menu, you see waitlist menu. You want to click on an enrollment menu to start enrolling into classes. And then you're going to start inputting those course codes for the lectures and discussions. So you have add a course here. You want to click add, paste the course code, and then hit send request. That's going to get you into the lecture. And then if you need a discussion, it's going to send you a reminder in red that says, oh, wait a minute, I need that as well. And then you do the same thing for the discussion. So add course code for the discussion, send request. You keep doing this for all of your classes until you get your full 12 units of enrollment. Then you click show study list. And once you do that, your full schedule should be listed here. So if your schedule looks somewhat like this and you don't see any notations on the either side of it, that means you've done it correctly, right? And if you're missing something like a lecture discussion, it is going to remind you about that. So make sure that you're doing things well. You go to your study list to make sure that you're doing it correctly. All right. So this is the way you're going to enroll in the classes, but don't log into this until after you have all your course codes because it will log you out after a few minutes of inactivity. All right. So that's for the WebReg option. Okay. And then degree works we talked about. So you do have that option. Well, middle of the fall quarters when that's going to be up. We talked about that earlier. And then will be, like I said, fall quarter, week 6 is when it's going to be available. Courses from other UCI institutions won't automatically be applied. So you can contact us in the office if you took courses and you're not seeing something being applied. Let us know because sometimes we have to manually add that to the degree works audit. All right, so a few housekeeping things, the next steps before we go to Q&A. All right, so basically, in order for you to be able to enroll into courses, you need to complete your Canvas modules by July 11th. So obviously that's coming up very soon. So you need to complete that by that deadline. At that point, then you'll receive fall course registration emails. We're going to start to send those out to students once Canvas modules are completed between July 15th and 22nd. So hopefully once you've done your modules, you're going to be seeing those emails come anywhere between the 15th and the 22nd. And the emails we're going to send you are going to have a degree check attached to it, how to enroll, enrollment instructions, and course recommendations, and also the confirmation that your hold has been lifted that's currently on your account, alerting you that you can now start to enroll into courses. All right. So once you receive your email, you can enroll into classes via WebReg. So if you have questions about your registration at any point after the email, definitely reply to the academic advisor who sent you the email because they're going to be the best person to assist you with that. And it's going to be sent from an individual advisor, so you'll have access to their email address from that email that you get sent, right? And then definitely make sure you enroll as soon as possible. Don't delay because courses will fill up. So if you wait too long, you might not get the schedule that you want. So as soon as you get that email, I'd say go into and start enrolling and get everything done. All right, so another thing, before fall quarter, make sure you turn in all your official transcript documents and test scores. Make sure that gets taken care of. You will be receiving another set of modules through UCI orientation, so make sure that's covered. Any vaccination records, you want to get that sent from UCI Student Health. And then you want to get your UCI student ID card, which is kind of a digital ID card that you can go online. So if you just Google UCI student ID card, you should get a link for that. And then make sure you sign up for the UCI Zot Alert, which is the emergency system where you get sent messages, text messages and emails if something's going on campus that you need to be aware of. And then very important, pay your fees by fall quarter by September 15th, because if you don't, you will get dropped from classes. So definitely make sure you get your fees paid on time. And then welcome week is kind of that opening week. We call it it's like a 0 week, but there's no classes on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of that week. Classes will start on Thursday, September 22nd. So if you have an in-person class on Thursday, that's on Tuesdays, Thursdays, then you will start going to that class on that Thursday of welcome week. right? And so if it's on Friday, you would start on the following Friday. So that only happens during the fall quarter. During the winter and the spring quarters, it's kind of a normal, it starts on a Monday for the quarter. All right, so now we are going to open it up to some Q&A. Thank you. I know there was a lot of information. Tried to make sure we went slowly enough so you could actually understand everything. But we are going to kind of team up and help answer the questions that you have as you come in. So now is the best time to start putting those questions in, and then we'll start answering those for you. But thank you, and we'll get to the questions as soon as we see them.
Okay, Kurt, so we do have some questions coming in. So the first question from one of our students is, does COGS 14P have prerequisites?
So I'm gonna kind of answer that. I'm gonna get out of this again for the presentation to help answer with that. So what you're gonna want to do, which I probably should have covered if you go back in, right? And I'll use the COGS as the example, is courses that have prerequisites are gonna be listed right here on the schedule. So give me 1 second here and I'll show you that right now. So if you go into like 14 beats, and that's the question we're looking at, right? So I'm going to scroll down here. You click on prerequisites right here, and then it's going to pop up there and it's going to show you what the prerequisites are, if there are any. For COGS 14P, no. The only reason it says no Psych 14P is because we changed the numbers from Psych to COGS. But yes, for 14P, there is no prerequisite for that class. So if you want to take that in the fall quarter, that could be an option. But I wanted to use that as an example to show you what the links were. So hopefully that answered your question.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Kurt.
Hmm.
Okay, so the next question is participation in discussion classes mandatory? Are they graded as pass/fail?
Good question. So, like I mentioned earlier with the scheduled classes, the units are assigned, to the lecture. So that's really where your grade is coming from. So you're not going to get a grade for the lecture and the discussion typically. There are some exceptions. So sometimes you might have lab courses that have two different grades, but for the most part, your lecture is the grade. So the discussion is required. 90% of the time, I'd say, if you see a lecture and a discussion, you need to enroll in both. How it's utilized by the professor is up to them. So sometimes they say, oh, it's mandatory, and they count that as participation points. Sometimes they may only say come when you have questions, but that's really up to each professor. But for the enrollment purposes, definitely enroll in the lecture and the discussion because you're going to need that to officially enroll into the course.
All right, so our next question is, where can I find course descriptions?
Course descriptions, very good. Very good question. So I'm going to go again back to the schedule classes because at the top, actually, I'm going to go back to the registrars page here. So give me a second here. We'll go to the registrars. At the top here, if you want course descriptions, your best resource is going to be the general catalog. So if I click on that, and right now it says 24-25, but in a couple weeks, I think it's going to transition to the 25-26 one. But you would click on web, right? And then you'll get access to the general catalog. And then if you want course descriptions, the best way is to go courses A to Z right here. And then you can click on, for example, if I'm looking for political science again, then I can see descriptions for classes, brief descriptions right there. Most course descriptions are there. The classes that really don't have a lot of descriptions are the classes that have like nines after them. So for example, nines, like if it's like 129, 139, those are called special topic courses. Those change every quarter, so there's not really an available course description in the catalog that's there if it has a nine, only if it has a nine after it, right? So, but most of the other classes will have that, but that's where you're going to go to see the course descriptions.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kurt. The next question is the degree check that you mentioned, that's specifically catered to us individually, right? And then based on that, we choose our classes. So kind of just asking about the degree check and then how they would choose classes from that.
Yes, so it's obviously once you get the email, it's probably going to be a little bit easier to understand because you got to be able to read it and see what we're showing you. But the email is going to have a degree check attached, so that's going to show you what you have credit for as far as previous courses from other colleges or AP scores. And so we're going to put those courses in for you and show you what you've done already, and then whatever is left blank is what you still need to complete at UCI. So that's going to show you that. But in the email, we're also going to provide you with suggestions for the fall quarter. So it makes it a little bit easier for you. So rather than you having to figure that out, we're going to say, okay, take an upper division political science course or take a stats course or take a computer technology class. We're going to have some suggestions that will help you kind of decide on those classes. And then after you've read that email, then you can start going to schedule classes, looking for your options, find the course codes, and then enroll in the classes via WebReg.
Okay, so our next question, Kurt, is will we have access to a recording of this presentation once it's over? A lot of important info was mentioned, and I'd like to be able to reference it while registering.
Yes, definitely. And so we are recording this lecture. We are going to have, make this available to all students, and we'll probably put that in the email as well as a link. So you'll have access to this for sure. So definitely good for you on that. Your Canvas modules also has a lot of important information that you can continue to go back to as well. So you'll have two different ways of kind of looking back for other important information. So good question. And yeah, you'll definitely have access to the presentation.
Okay. Um, For the next question, I think I will go ahead and just answer this one. So the student's asking if I submitted the advising form late, does it mean that I get the registration email later? So if you've already submitted the pre-advising evaluation form, we're considering you to be on time, even if you submitted it after the original deadline. So basically, if you got it in by the end of June, then we're still considering you on time because we've had enough time to do your evaluations. So you will be helped and you will be sent your fall registration email during our first round of advising emails that are going to go out starting next week. Okay, next question. Okay, so how difficult would it be to switch majors within the School of Social Sciences?
These are all great questions. So change of majors are possible depending on the major, right? So there's always a qualification with that because as transfer students, many of you have 2 or 3 years, 3 years maximum, right? 9 courses is the maximum that any transfer student has. So changing majors a lot will depend on two things. One is your time frame, how much time do you have to complete the degree requirements? Two, how impacted that major is. So, for example, I'll use one as an example. Let's say you're coming in as, a sociology major and you're trying to switch into, an impacted major like business administration. They typically don't take a lot of majors and their requirements, you have to complete those before you even get considered. So yes, you can change majors, but it is dependent on the major itself and how impacted and how much time it takes you to complete those major requirements. So if you have those questions, you can come into us once the fall quarter starts and speak with our advisors. We can help you out with that. If you have questions, during the summer, you can email the Socksite transfer email address as well. But yeah, it is kind of dependent. But the answer is yes, you can, but it will depend on the major.
Awesome. Thank you, Kurt. Okay, so next question. If there's a sequence of classes that I did at my community college that's not completed, am I allowed to finish it at UCI? So the student's asking, for example, they started taking OChem at community college. Can they take the rest of OChem here at UCI?
So it is possible in those certain classes. If you're coming from a community college, the assist.org website is the best source to see what some of those courses are packages where you get either all or nothing. Some of them are course by course. Assist will kind of help with that, but you also want to probably, if you're doing OChem, maybe you're thinking about going to med school. There is a pre-health advising option that we have with the School of Biological Sciences that you can utilize once the fall quarter starts. If you're trying to get more in depth with those, I would talk to them. I mean, I know organic chemistry is a physical sciences course, and that's under the School of Physical Sciences. But if you're trying to go into a pre-health profession and you want to complete the rest of the sequence there, they can help you out with that and kind of guide you in the right direction for those questions.
Okay. Um, Our next question is kind of an administrative one. So as far as like the vaccination records, turning them into Student Health Center, is there a deadline for submitting those forms?
There is a deadline where I'm not sure what the deadline is. They typically send emails out to you. Yeah, I know you're getting a lot of emails, probably every day, but there is a deadline. They'll say you need to complete it by this point, and I'm not sure if those deadlines have been sent out to everyone yet. But there will be an eventual deadline point where they'll probably say, hey, if you don't get it in by this point, by this deadline, a hold might be placed on your record. If you get those emails, don't discount it, right? Read them because what happens if a hold gets put on your record is that you can't enroll in the classes. It prevents you from doing a lot of other things. But check your emails. Make sure that your student health, UCI student health, usually is the one that sends those emails out. So just be checking those periodically to see when the deadline might be.
All right, our next question. So the student's a political science major and they're looking at the requirements for the major, but they're a little bit unsure about how upper division courses work and specifically about the special topics classes. So like poli sci 159 and 149, how there's multiple versions of those classes offered each quarter. So could you explain a little bit about how that works?
Sure. So political science is a major. You'll get that degree check. It'll probably make a lot more sense, when you get that degree check. But for the upper division courses, there's two areas, right? One is what it's called a module, and there's various modules on political science that are considered upper division courses. For example, the 120 sequence is American government, the 130 sequence is theory, and so on and so forth. So every student has to complete 3 courses in one political science module, right? It doesn't have to be done all at once, but spread out. And then there's also 4 additional upper division political science courses that can come from any module that you want, right? And so if you're taking the special topics courses, which are those like 139s, 159s, 149s, you can actually take more than one of those 9 courses, 149 courses, for example, as long as the title changes every quarter. So we've had students that have completed 3 149 courses to meet the 140 module for international relations. That's totally fine as long as the title of the course varies each time you take that special topics course. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, and just to kind of add on to what Kurt was saying, those special topics classes are pretty much under every department in social sciences. So the odds are good that whatever your major is, you're going to see a lot of classes that are like numbered 100 and above, but end in 9, like a 129 or a 189. And you'll see lots of different topics offered and different titles. So good rule of thumb is if you see that in social sciences, the class that ends with 9, you can take as many of those as you want for credit as long as the titles are different. So you just can't take the same title more than once. All right. Um, So it's looking like this is maybe our last question. So the question is, if I'm planning to go to grad school, are there different class requirements? And if so, how would I find those?
All right, that's a good final question to end on, I think. So grad school, obviously, many of our students do go to grad school in various kind of fields of study, right? And that's really, it's going to be dependent on the grad school program you're applying to, the program. For example, you may be a sociology major, but you may be applying to a public policy master's, right? And so some programs don't have any prerequisites, right? So they might not have any courses. Some may have specifics, right? We do have 2 resources that you can actually go for help with graduate school preparation. One of them is our Social Science Academic Resource Center because they do grad school prep as well. And we also have the Division of Career Pathways here at UCI, which is our general kind of career center. And they also do grad school preparations as well. They're going to be your 2 best resources because the schools themselves are really what you're going to look at, right? So every school might be different on the requirements for what they need. Some of them require test scores, certain courses. Most of them require some type of letter of recommendation. So that's going to be something important that you look at, like if you're thinking about grad school, PhD, masters, law school, things like that. You want to start talking to faculty members, getting to know them because you're going to need some type of letter of recommendation regardless of the grad program. And that's something that you're going to want to do because that letter could be very important, right? It's not just something that says, hey, I got an A in a class, but it might say, hey, well, they got an A in the class, but they also were very active and they have a good, strong work ethic. So you want to go to office hours a lot to get to know those professors. and sort of engage in that. But yeah, the requirements for grad programs are going to vary depending on the program you apply to. So you want to talk to the school that you're going to be applying to, and then utilize our Division of Career Pathways and our SARC office as well.
All right, so I think that's it for our Q&A. So, oh wait. Yeah, so that's it for our Q&A. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap up. So Kurt, did you have anything you wanted to add before we end the webinar?
Yeah, hopefully this was very informative for everybody, and the questions were really great. So I know it seems like everyone was engaged in the presentation. So very happy about that. Again, you're going to be getting those emails, shortly, probably as early as next week. So make sure you get those Canvas modules done. That's a huge thing that you need to get done, because that is going to generate the email that you're going to get. If you don't get them done in time, then it's going to delay the email. So just make sure you get everything done. You want to get your classes out of the way, because you don't want to wait until the beginning of fall quarter to get this done, because then classes are limited and it's more stressful. So you want to be as stress-free as possible. Best way to do that is to kind of, when you get the email enrollment classes, then you've got the hard part out of the way. But no, thank you again for joining us, and we're very excited to see all of you during the fall quarter.